inside the all-new House of Public Discourse Radio.com. The house is an area in social media where individuals can come together to discuss societal issues, and from that discussion influence political action. Welcome to the house,
where our house is your house.
Hi, welcome to the Progressive Zone. I'm Jill Strehl, and today we are honored to have one of the founding members of the House of Public Discourse. Her name is Linda Wade, and she is here with us. We're so excited. And Linda ran in 2018 for a Senate seat in District 42, and we're going to hear from her today about what an experience it was like. From the very beginning, it seemed like there were some fun parts, weren't there?
Yeah, that's one way to put it. But as we had talked about, if you're contemplating running for office or jumping in and trying to make a difference, I wanted to talk about, here's the things you have to watch out for. Here's the things you're going to have to learn. Here are the things where you're going to be pulled in wrong directions because you really are jumping into a shark tank.
Would you say that it was a shark tank because of your opponent, or was it partly the party not coming in quickly enough to help you out, or what would you say was the problem on that?
Well, when you look at like campaign management, most of that is predatory. Mm-hmm. And if you aren't a seasoned politician, you don't know who's giving you what you need or not. Mm-hmm. And that's very difficult. To give you for instance, when I first started, because I have an extensive business background, well, I knew I was on a learning curve. So I started out with, we're going to do a cafeteria plan. Mm-hmm.
You're an accountant, right?
Yeah, you're an accountant, and project manager. And so I said, give me an a la carte and I will pick and choose. And the first time I didn't put in any milestones on what I expected for what they did. From there, after that, I did, because it was just like good money after bad. And if you're a school teacher or someone who hasn't been heavily engaged in organizing chaos, I think it's very difficult. It's very difficult for you because these people are slick and they may think that they're delivering, but you can see because you're not getting donations in, you're not getting access to meetings and stuff. They seem to redefine the terms of what they're responsible to do at a drop of a hat. And so, being a business person, that was really hard to pull on me because I have more experience than they do in that, in deliverables. Well,
when you say that Oklahoma is broke, let's fix it, how would you like to fix it? What do you see going forward that needed to be done?
Well, for instance, if you look at when I ran in 2018, the teachers walked out. It was the teachers finally had enough. We were funding and are still funding our education system with the same amount of money we did in 2009.
Good Lord. Pencils cost
And
more. What were they
we have
thinking?
another 300,000 students.
Okay, so they're going on old numbers, and you, being an accountant, you knew that that wasn't going to wash. Were
Yeah.
were the teachers pretty much in your as part of your support
Well,
base?
actually, their union, I'll probably get in
Yeah.
trouble if somebody plays this, but their union sold them out to the the state. Basically, they capitulated when the teachers should have kept on. And as it turns out, the state delivered nothing that they promised back there in the back room. And I took exception with that. And I told teachers that you need to continue on with this strike. You need to not let this union herd you into this agreement, because this agreement is crap. And
It sounds
a lot
like
of them
you're
got mad at me and tried to. We have a blog page with like a red apple on Facebook that I think she's a Republican lobbyist, actually, but she runs, and it's like a big education blog. And they almost didn't give me an apple, saying I was against education, but I had a personal conversation with her, and she ended up giving me the apple because I was pro education. I'm just not pro starving teachers.
right.
Let's keep fighting. But it's Oklahoma's broken because it's corrupt, and it's been corrupt for a long time. And
Would you say the special interests are taking all the money that should have been earmarked for
oil
the
and
people?
gas owns the state. We have a governor who is every time you turn around, he's fighting the tribes over decades old compacts that were agreed to, and that the Native Americans have raised what they pay out over time just because they felt that was right, not because they had to. And every time you turn around, he's attacking tribal sovereignty. Yeah, and I'm thinking, Okies elected this guy because the tribes are very much community members. They help repair roads. They help repair bridges. They put money in the community. It's like COVID. They were giving all sorts of COVID shots. Come on up. We don't care if you're white.
Well, is it
their facilities?
You were telling me one time about how the legislature killed the earned income credit. Wasn't that one of the things that legislature baby deep sixed?
They deep sixed it on the state tax return. But what was the purpose of it? Nothing. We gave a gigantic tax cut to the wealthiest here. And so now we're short. Now we're always broke. We're always broke. And they keep trying to sell that oil and gas is some panacea. Well, tribes are the third largest employer in this state.
Right. So
the government is number one.
So would you say that the tribes were in your corner, though, as far as wanting to vote you in? Wouldn't that mean that they would like to see you
I
in?
hope so. I know that I got money from several of the tribes, including my own. So I got, but
Choctaw,
it's
right?
not much money. It's not that much money. It's like $2,500, something like that. It's not much. That goes
so
quick.
It sounds like they're always going to be protecting the interests of the people who have the most money and the most to lose. If it were redistributed differently, maybe.
No,
just the people of Oklahoma, the people who are in charge, I guess I should say.
You're talking about our Republican legislature. We've been controlled by Republicans now for decades. And they have consistently eroded every institution we have. So we're at the bottom of the list for health. We're at the bottom of the list for education. We're at the bottom of the list for everything, roads and bridges. You know, they're, and yet they raise, they do the capital gains, more capital gains. They do want to raise taxes on the people, only they do it through the back door. You know, this game that's been played for 4 decades of lower my tax. Well, so they lower your income tax, and then they raise every regressive tax system we have, which would be your property tax, which would be your excise tax, which would be your gas taxes, your utilities. My natural gas bill, the regulatory taxes on it are more than what I actually use in gas.
Oh my goodness.
That's the way it works in Oklahoma.
Isn't it? When I noticed that you were nipping at the heels of your opponent in 2018 pretty well, and that means that you had a lot of people who heard what you had to say and apparently wanted the changes that you were talking about. Now, since your opponent has gotten in, what has changed? Anything?
Nothing.
Mm.
I heard.
What did she promise?
That she would take care of education, and all she's done is rubber stamp the ALEC program of education defunding from the beginning. I really was kind of surprised. I had hoped that she would fight that, and but she's one voice. She's one voice.
But you were somebody. A lot of people heard your voice, though.
That will punish you for going against them. It's not like the Democrats in Washington, you know, where you can go totally rogue and hold up a $3.5 trillion stimulus bill and the party does nothing to you. Here, the Republicans would have punished her. I don't know how, but it would have been ugly. And so people don't understand balance of power. And that's one of the things I tried to tell them is that we're out of balance. We need we need 3 more Democrats alone in the Senate, and we could stop some of the worst abuses. There's only 6.
Oh, wow.
And if there
so
were
you
just
need 9
more, if there were 3 more, we could stop some of the worst legislation coming out of ALEC. Because these guys don't think. They just take their marching orders from ALEC. I listened to some floor debate on the Senate last year. The people who were bringing in this legislation couldn't even describe it. They would be asked a question about, well, I don't know. You wrote this legislation. Why don't you know? That's the way, you know why?
That's
because
bizarre.
They're just getting a sheet of paper from ALEC that says we want this legislation, and so that's what they're putting in front, and they don't know nothing about it. Don't care. Because ALEC makes sure.
Well, now your
donations.
Your district covers Midwest City, Dell City, Choctaw, Oklahoma City, and one of the largest Air Force bases in the country, Tinker Air Force Base.
Correct.
Has gerrymandering affected any of that?
Oh, well, yeah, heck yeah. We've been gerrymandered for decades now, you know, because the Republicans have absolute control of the state. You know, I can't say that Democrats wouldn't have done the same thing. I hope not.
Really?
You know what? They're going to gerrymander it again because the Dell City area of this map of that Senate District 42 leans a little too far left for their taste. So they are peeling it off and putting it in a district that is already left, and they're moving in more probably rural Choctaw. So so that they can turn because my run frightened them. So it's time
I
for
bet.
more Republican area. Now that's not an approved plan, but kind of their goal.
Uh-huh. Well,
But
I figured that
and
your
a very
run
strong
might
and
have
a very
gotten their
strong
attention. Yeah.
candidate who has the House district out there, the Democrat. He's very strong and he is smart as a whip. And they're trying to defang him. And they
And how
didn't
are
want
they
him to
doing that?
run for Senate District
Uh-huh.
42 seat because he probably could have beat the current incumbent.
Uh-huh.
But they are looking to peel his House district off so that they can maintain this for the Republican.
That's amazing. It's like they're rewriting all the rules, okay? And they just want talking heads in there to do their bidding.
That's all they want. Truly, this
Yeah.
is why you see the intellectual level of these people being pretty disappointing. But
Right.
listen, Senator Stanley isn't dumb by any means, and she was actually a friend of the family, and she ran a clean campaign with me, and I appreciate that. And but if you're a Republican in this state where we have straight party voting, boom, it's all over. They don't look, they don't care.
What about the criminal justice system? That's all the prisons are for profit, correct?
Not all of them. Not all of them,
What
but
what is how does that
it was a
how,
heck of an industry here. But now, since we took a citizens petition and legalized medical marijuana here, and we also asked for justice reform, where we stopped imprisoning people for smoking a doobie, we passed that law too. Our prisons are emptying out, and they are all those boys are scrambling trying to figure out how they're going to feed their graft trough now, because those are going away.
Yeah, right. So it benefits the people who run those prisons to just keep sticking people in there. How does making
Well, they're having
marijuana
trouble with that
legal
in
now? Does
Oklahoma
that cut?
now. We changed the law.
They're cutting in. It cuts into it. Yeah, doesn't it cut into the profits
Changed
for
the
these
law.
people?
Well, we're closing down
Yeah.
if you
Well,
got fewer people
yeah.
in. But we couldn't get the state legislature to act on it. And so finally, there were enough signatures on a petition to put it on a statewide ballot. And we changed the law. So we're trying, they've closed several around the state, and there'll be more closing because but of course, the good old boy system is still alive and well in Oklahoma. I don't want you to think it isn't. And they do like to put people in prison, and they have the Marquis de Sade School of Prison Stewardship. And
Lord.
We have inmates die every day in our Oklahoma City jail.
And no one reports it.
From the conditions there, which they get rotten food, it's unsanitary, and it's brutal. The other day, there was a story published where a jailer was saying they're not humans.
Oh my God.
Well, you guys are over there on the East Coast, so you don't understand how it works out here.
Well,
Johnny he was in Texas.
I'm in Texas. I'm in Texas.
Well, and I guarantee
I know what it's like.
You've got the same story going on.
Well, they had out at Carswell Air Force Base, Linda, they changed it to a prison for women and a prison hospital kind of setup. And the Fort Worth Weekly and Dallas Observer may have done a story, but Fort Worth Weekly is one of the few investigative journalism pockets of integrity. Okay.
Right.
And they went in, I can't remember if it was undercover or not, but I mean, that was a hell of a story. And
Yeah.
and it sounded so much like what you're talking about. But no, I'm from Texas. I'm very aware of how bad it is, but I'm also very aware about how there aren't enough journalists to go out who are not afraid to report these things, just all the brutal
Well,
conditions, everything.
now there's one guy who goes out and everybody else grabs his story, and that's what
Mhm,
they sell as the story. It may not be the story,
mhm,
but
mhm.
we don't have investigative journalism anymore. It's basically
No.
what they are mouthpieces for the rich. And if the rich don't want that story told, it doesn't get told.
Yeah, but it was like you and I were talking about. There are more of us than there are of them. And we really
Yeah,
need
but
to find a
we're
leader.
not in
And
charge of the airways.
no,
And
but
when the fairness doctrine was thrown out, it allowed
yeah,
the
yeah,
conservative radio, which was well funded, to overwhelm the
uh-huh,
airways, and then we see it on various news channels. They have a lean. They don't bring much of, or if they bring somebody in with a differing opinion, they're usually inept.
right,
It's
uh-huh.
quite a game. Quite a
It
game.
is. I know you can check on a number of stations all over the country, and their opening pieces will use the same words and phrases, just
Oh yeah.
identically, like they're in the same script. Same
Well,
script.
yeah, it's like they're talking about, oh, Biden's failure to get through the stimulus. Every headline I've read has been spun. They failed to meet. Two Democrats are causing this. And what they are selling, they're saying we don't want that big a stimulus package because we believe in supply side economics, which I'm sorry,
Mhm.
we've had a decade of education about supply side economics, also known as trickle down economics, is a lie. It's a
Of
lie.
course.
Period.
Hmm.
It's a lie. It never worked the way they said it worked. It's just a lie. And so, what we need to do is be calling them out for that they are adhering to supply side economics because somebody's paying them to.
Right. Right. Would you say that the education system, not just in Oklahoma, but in the whole country, is pretty much against any kind of analytical thinking, any kind of uh,
Well,
bringing
wasn't that
students
what
out that
Leave
are.
Every Child Behind was about?
What
They removed,
exactly happened to that? What,
well, basically, it was teach to the test, and you have to
right.
test to get out of the grade, and literally it is your teacher tells you this is the answer, and your whole education is to be able to regurgitate that answer. We literally watched our grandchildren being told, you need to memorize the multiplication table, you don't need to do it. Think about that.
Wow.
Well,
You
we
don't
didn't
need to
go
know
along with
why,
that.
just do it.
And
Oh,
because and
no.
because our grandson did the work, he got penalized. Got the right answer,
You
but
mean
because he showed his work
he
on the
showed the
paper,
work
yeah, that
back
is
in.
our education system now. Now maybe the blue states aren't doing it that way, but the red states are, and
Well, we're in a red state.
we have raised up a whole generation of people who cannot do their own critical thinking. They can't apply logic
But to be
and
penalized for
reason.
doing it, for being penalized for showing what you know how to do,
We
that's
ran into it
insane.
with our daughter,
Oh,
where she had the teacher, I don't remember what class it was, but asked for a definition of a word.
uh-huh,
And Anna, I suppose, was supposed to regurgitate what she had been told, but Anna
uh-huh,
gave her a more extensive
uh-huh.
definition of it that was actually much better than what she had
Right.
done.
And what happened?
She marked it wrong. We
Oh,
had
Lord.
we had a meeting with her over that.
Did you have a dialogue with her about that? I
Yeah,
hope
we
you
had a
did.
dialogue with her about that
Mhm.
because, you cannot check it off wrong because she's not regurgitating an answer. Your answer actually was rather inadequate, and I showed her all the places it was.
How did that end? Did that end well, or how did that
I don't remember
shake
if
out?
she changed it or not, but I don't remember her doing that to her again because we were paying attention. And a lot of these kids don't have parents who pay attention.
No, they don't. No, and a lot of them are working different jobs and don't have the time to actually.
Yeah, and stop and think. You have quashed
That's
curiosity
terrible.
by doing that.
And
Quashed it.
rewarded being an
And
automaton.
rewarded being
Yeah,
a monkey.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
Absolutely.
this is and it's coming out in the workforce. I hear it all the time. And I do believe they've got some studies that come out with it. We now have a whole population of workers who cannot self-motivate because they've been trained in our public education systems to sit back and have the answer fed to them. So they don't know how to go to the next step unless they're told to. And it's a real problem. It's a real problem.
That's like this. It's like dystopian kind of landscape where you got
the way they want you.
robots.
Yeah.
Oh my God. That's just awful. Well, I still think that parents want what's best for their kids and want them to do better than they did. But what it sounds like, at least when you and I went to school, we were actually challenged a lot more than that. I mean, we had debate class. You were in debate class, weren't you? You were a debater.
Debate,
sure.
Theater, speech, track. Yeah.
But I can't imagine. Are the teachers so young that they are on board with this kind of initiative because they don't know any better?
Probably.
What do you think?
But I think they just wore out. Teachers aren't a aggressive group by nature anyway. It's kind of like the kindergarten teacher, always sweet.
Oh yeah.
Always trying to get along. Let's all get along.
Yeah.
And a lot, most teachers are probably in that stream, and so they just tried to work with what they were given, and because they'll get rid of the ones who rebel. They'll get rid of the ones who question them.
Rid of you.
Yeah,
But do the teachers have contracts? So they can't just give them the heave ho if they have a contract.
Their union sold them out to the state.
Yes, but I thought perhaps if they still had a contract, that would be recognized, wouldn't it?
On. I'm not impressed with the union at all. I think they are a bunch of. They have a bunch of school administrators running their union. And I'm sorry, if you decide, school administrator's interest and a teacher's interest are not. They can be compatible, but they are not the same.
If you were to run again, tell me one thing that you would absolutely do first thing. What's the first thing you would do if you got in to get that seat? What would you do when you got in to change things?
Oh, if I got in, I would hope there would then be 9 Democrats in the state Senate so that we could stop, Alex complete takeover of the state, because we could say no to some things, And I would try and share with my constituents the truth about what was really going on, because I know probably most of them. I know Democrats are pretty good about communicating with their constituents about this happened, this happened, this happened. And I don't, but I've never gotten anything from my state senator, or so
Yeah. Yeah.
telling me what
So
was
if
up
you
or
had
why
three,
she made a decision.
if you had three more Democrats in, and you all would you all be able then to go forward with some strong initiatives and get some groundswell of
Well, I don't
support
know
and
that.
do
I
some
don't know.
things?
It depends. It depends on how much they want to oppose you. You know, I suppose there are some
Mm-hmm.
Republicans in there. You know, a couple who would be capable of actually applying and supporting a rational plan to fix something. But, you know, we come back to these standards: no new taxes. Oh, after you've cut taxes to the bone. You know, and I got to tell you, they haven't raised the education budget hardly at all. Certainly not enough to retain teachers. Oklahoma is on track to lose 40% of its teachers for its next education year.
Oh my God.
Yeah, well, it doesn't
So
seem to
it's like a
concern them,
pipeline to the prisons.
you
Is it
know?
like a pipeline to the prisons,
Well,
would you say?
yeah, well, yeah, lack of education is always that. But, you know, our prison system has been set up that things that maybe should have been misdemeanors have been made felonies. And we stopped that stuff.
Ah.
We stopped possession from being charged as a felony. And that screwed them all
Mm-hmm.
up. And that's why the prisons are emptying, because they can't keep
I
feeding
see.
new felons.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the people did that. The people did
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
to decriminalize marijuana.
The state wasn't going to touch it. They fought it, and it's taken us. That was 4 years ago. We're still fighting them on getting it fully implemented.
It just sounds like that as long as you're for the status quo and you don't get in anybody's way, you might have a shot. But if you've got a brain of your own and if you do the math and you can catch them up on it,
But that must not be
you can do
true.
the math and
I did pretty
and show
good.
your work.
You know,
You did
I
great.
got
You did great.
43% of the vote out here with an independent running, who was known out here, and against the Republican didn't get over 50%.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
that's why I'm sure that this Senate district will be rearranged.
I bet. Yeah, I know because I saw your numbers and I thought, whoa, this isn't a first run, is it? And then when I saw it was, it really surprised me. And I thought, your message resonated with a lot of people.
Well, because I'm a pragmatist first and foremost, you know, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not an ideologue. You know,
Mm-hmm.
other than believing that actions should lift all boats if we're going to fill
Right,
this lake,
right.
you know,
Yeah.
and applying some rational math to what we
Mm-hmm.
do, and you don't give a tax cut when your oil tax revenue is declining.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like gross production tax. Oklahoma has one of the cheapest gross production taxes in the nation.
Mm-hmm.
And it was even lower, but we raised enough cane about it during the 2018 cycle. They did raise it to like 7%, but they had it knocked down to 1% and 2%. Here's the thing: they kept saying, "Oh, well, you'll pay more for gas." Well, you know what? What a huge lie that no media around here confronted them about. Gross production tax, you know what? That has nothing to do with the spot market. Nothing. And that is where
Yeah.
the price of your gas comes from, the spot market. So if they're paying $13 or 13% like they are in Louisiana, while Oklahoma is giving it away for 2%, well, no difference.
That's
No different. Because gross
so what it is.
gets when it comes out of the wellhead.
So what you did is you do the math, but you made the mistake of showing your work. Isn't that
Well,
sort of like
no,
what it
I
is?
don't think it was a mistake. I got 43%.
No, well, of course not. But what I mean is, I'm putting that in quotes. You made the mistake
Yeah.
of not of actually showing your work and
Yeah.
saying this is the way it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they don't want to
And
hear that.
telling people the facts, and they would say to me, well, I don't know, I don't like what the Democrats in Washington are doing. And I go, neither do I don't like any of
Hmm.
them, because they're all lying to us. I'm
Hmm.
about giving you the facts, and let's coming to a good decision about how to go forward
Hmm.
with it. Let's keep ideology out of it, and let's just be pragmatic. And I'm
It
still that
sounds
way.
like it's hard to get them on board. It's hard to get them on board if they even detect that their any hand will be in their pocket, power wise, money wise. It just seems like they would be very much in favor of all your initiatives, except that they might not be able to hold on to the control they have. Would you say
Who's
that?
they?
Do you think that?
Who's they?
The powers that be, the people who
The
are
powers
in
be don't
control of
like
your
anything
state.
about me, and that's okay. I
Hmm.
consider that a badge of honor. But no, the
Yeah,
powers
well,
to be,
yeah.
no. But the thing is, we don't have honest brokers anymore, and we're under the control of ideologues, and I don't like that. I'm a free thinker,
Hmm.
and I question everything. I've always been very
Right.
curious.
Good.
And so
Hmm.
just because you tell me something doesn't mean I'm not going to go out and look it up and figure out, well, what's the counter opinion to that? Who agrees with that? Who's describing it best? And most people don't take the time
Right.
to do that. I do.
Hmm.
I just don't go along because somebody on the left said that. I don't, my opinion is not necessarily I agree. I go
Uh,
look for support for what was said, or opposition. But you can't just throw out, you know, it's like, we know supply side economics destroyed the middle class in this country. And yet we got two senators right now who are stopping a $3.5 trillion package that will come completely back into our economy. And it come completely back into our economy and will create $1.25 in revenues for every dollar that's spent, as opposed, that's 350 billion a year, as opposed to the 800 billion a year we give to the War Department, of which 15% flows back into the actual larger economy. Most of it flows into the very tight pockets of a few.
hmm.
We get no growth from that. But if you spend money on infrastructure and on people, it comes directly back to our economy and creates economic energy. Right now, what they've done for 40 years is starve America of its currency. These people offshore, or they save it, or they put it away where most of the population can't touch it. So I always have this picture of looking out on the savannah, and we the people are the zebras,
Hmm.
and there's a pack of lions, those are the entitled, at a shrinking pond, and we're trying to figure out how to get a drink out of a resource that is shrinking more and more every day. That's the American people.
Hmm.
you know it, it's a
Sounds like
shrinking pool.
we need to take the lions out or create a distraction.
Got to figure out a way to do that. But I'm going to tell you, I just think Democratic Party has been complicit in it for a
Of
long
course.
time. And
I agree.
And now that more people are getting educated about how actual economies work,
Hmm.
which is not supply side economics, I think they're going to have a lot harder time getting us to swallow that pill.
Yeah. They'll have to create yet another thing to distract us.
Yeah. And the pandemic is without a doubt pressing our.
Can't hear you.
We're back.
There we are. There we are.
But so actually, I believe the stimuluses that they did put out are the only thing that kept this economy from completely crashing.
Yeah.
And that is how economies should work. When you need it, the government that is a sovereign monetary nation, which means we print our own money. We are in control of all of our own debt. That they should infuse money into the economy until industry and people can pick it back up.
Right.
That's what you do. You help them through a hard time, and then when everybody's cooking again, then it flows back to the government. But Bill Clinton created a recession because he was so big on saving. That money should have been going back into the economy even back then. So surpluses are not necessarily your friend. If you got surplus and you're not having enough energy to spend it elsewhere, and it's a straw horse. It's a straw man. It's a straw man. This is not your kitchen table budget. So
it doesn't sound like there are any easy answers on this.
No, there's no easy answers, and the level of corruption we have up there now everywhere. We need to restore the fairness doctrine. Period, without doubt. But even when Democrats had majority, they didn't do it. The Republicans aren't going to do it. But we need to restore the fairness doctrine. We should have codified Roe v. Wade 40 years ago. We should have ended Citizens United long ago. And we need to take the power of Congress to write their campaign laws. We need to take that away from them, because they have so corrupted the system so that they could keep their trough full that they're useless now. It's like
the lobbyists are so bad.
Hunter Biden's done feeding off his daddy is okay. No, I don't think it's okay. But is it legal? Yes. The Congress made it legal.
So they can just change however they want to benefit themselves whenever they want.
And I think we need to, we need to update things because they really shouldn't have the power to do that. We should have a way of stopping them. If a business can, if a person can only donate, what is it, 2,600? I don't recall anymore, to a candidate. Well, then no one should be able to donate more than that through the back door.
When I saw some of the Congress people who were supposedly for more competitive pricing on pharmaceuticals, and yet they were getting like $700,000-$800,000, $1 million given to them by big pharma, and I'm like, hello, is this a conflict of interest? Maybe
how much more blatantly corrupt could it be?
Maybe when you drop stock or buy it because you have insider knowledge right before a pandemic, or right before, because you knew what was going to happen, and nobody ever slapped their hands. And that's right. Democrat and Republican. That's not just one side. The bankers
should have never been bailed out, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because that was just bad money after bad money. That didn't come back to the economy at all.
Well, but we need to have people like you, though, Linda, at state level and go on maybe to Washington. We need to
And
have
even
people like
local.
you who have a clear vision. Yeah, yeah. But if we
You need to
don't,
get,
I mean, we
running
don't
for
have a
your city
chance.
council if that's your passion. You know, and the thing is, there is such an utter lack of empathy and compassion in our politics today. And I'm sure that this is not our first round of this, but there's a reason why Americans are referred to as the ugly Americans.
Yeah.
Because we have a real problem with compassion. We have a problem with, it's all me, me, me. But you know what? I do better when everyone around me is doing better.
Well, sure.
And trying to prejudge it, it's like those memes, where Jesus says, "Oh, I'm only going to do a copay with you if I heal you." you know, that Jesus never. What Jesus asked no one. Have you got your copay?
Yeah, he didn't talk to the lepers and say, "Hey,
Yeah,
while
and he hung
you're
out
up,
with the
grab that
criminals,
card."
hung out with the lepers, he hung out with the poor people, and
Mhm.
and I that's not the Jesus I'm with, and I'm not dogmatic in any way. I just like
Mhm.
logic.
Well, tell me about when you were doing the door to door for quite a bit, and talking to people one on one, and you talked to, was it a Republican who
I
went
talked to
along with,
lots of. I
but
didn't
but
care
one
what you
one
were.
one person in particular though agreed with all of your initiatives and said, but he couldn't vote for you. Why?
He was a former state legislator. And he agreed with me up and down the line on every issue and what my opponent would do. And then he said, "But I can't vote for a Democrat."
And that
See,
sort of sums it up.
that's dogmatic, and that's
Mm-hmm.
where thinking stops.
Mm-hmm.
It's just ridiculous to me.
It's a full
But
stop.
yeah, but if you're going to run for office, because I want to spend a little time on that, if you decide you want to run for office, you need to really get exposed to some good allies who have been around it, because
Mm-hmm.
the campaign management field is very predatory. The state, particularly if you live in a red state,
Mm-hmm.
can be very aggressive with you because you're not on their side. And
Wow.
yeah, and then there are obstacles. It costs $1,000 to file to run as
Mm-hmm.
a state senator here.
Yeah, you have to be
$1,000.
serious. You have to be
A
serious. You
a
can't,
thousand dollars. Yeah, ridiculous. And and then you have to file all the time. So you've got to have someone who can stay up with your contribution reports and do the filing with the state. So you're going to have to pay for that. Then you got to be careful about what kind of money you take. And so you need somebody who's going to have supervision over that. These aren't necessarily things that just the usual green bee can do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, uh, I knew enough about it, having worked on some other people's campaigns, to do some monitoring of my own, but I had oversight over me,
Mm-hmm.
because it's worth paying for that to make sure you don't get in the weeds.
Oh,
And
absolutely. Yeah.
a lot of people don't know this. And when you hire someone to help you on your campaign, I'm going to tell you right now, you need to write down what are your deliverables that I am paying you for.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't, they won't. And even if you
God.
do, they might not.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm going to tell you, a lot of it is just smoke that's coming out of them. So you got to be cautious. You got to be cautious. probably, if you find a good mentor to point you in a direction, or somebody who's already in office who said, "Will this person help me gain my seat?"
Mm-hmm.
That might be a way to go. I have some people here that we're talking about a new candidate incubator, which might protect them from being predated on,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because somebody is kind of looking over their shoulder for free and going, yeah, might want to think twice about that contract.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just
Because they might spend 10 hours on you a week and they want $1,000 for it.
good Lord.
That's how it works. If they can get away with it.
Well, so you're saying it's not enough to have your heart in the right place and you want to help the people. You got to have
Yeah.
all your ducks in a row and they got to be wearing armor.
Right. And you need to make sure you've got somebody on your little close-knit team who knows what's going on to some degree.
To troubleshoot
Because,
and bird dog, yeah.
well, I'm really hard to fool.
Mm-hmm.
But I had
Mm-hmm.
some disservice done to me, but I learned.
Mm-hmm.
But and I had a much shorter fuse than a lot. But the horror stories, when we had a debrief of many of us candidates who ran, about
Mm-hmm.
what was the biggest challenge, etc. One of the first
Mm-hmm.
things came up was these campaign managers who sucked out all your cash and delivered nothing. Almost every candidate.
And they don't have to have any kind of write it down or accountability or anything like that.
Well, if
It's like a
if you don't
slush
have,
fund.
I have a business background, so I know to ask for those things. If I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to sign a
Mm-hmm.
contract to give you money, I want to know
Mm-hmm.
what my deliverables are.
Of
And
course.
I didn't enforce that heavily on the first deal that I did, but it was still an a la carte. But I got much stricter about it as I went down the road. It wasn't until the third person I hired who actually did exactly what we had agreed for her to do.
Well, when you went back to the ones who did not do what you told them to do, what was their reaction? I mean, were you able to?
Denial.
Oh, jeez. Okay. Mm-mm-mm.
That's it, and I'd say, well, I did a lot of stuff. You don't see that. Well,
Uh,
I didn't see it in my campaign either. I didn't see it in results. And no,
would you say
no.
that possibly being in campaign management, being in management for campaigns attracts that kind of uh,
I don't want to
mendacity
say
or?
that about them, because I think some of them are not that jaded. But
Yeah.
I did. But do I think they have passion without skill? Yes.
Okay. That's fair. Yeah.
But I don't want to
No,
say,
no.
yeah. But here's the thing: when you're taking scarce money from a little bitty candidate, you're hurting them when you don't deliver.
Right.
and
Exactly.
and I had no toleration for it. But then I'm not a school teacher who
Yeah.
might be running, who would take a lot of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
They got weeks to, to show me what they were doing.
Well, I think that people like you should run and need to have a lot of support, and we wish we had a lot of money to give you because your heart's in the right place and you got the smarts and you got the moxie and you did the math. And we're just so glad that you came on today. I mean, this has been great. We
Well,
hope you.
thanks. It kind of wide ranged there, but people need to understand it is a snake pit, and
Right.
you need to be very careful when you step in the ring and know what you're willing to commit monetarily, because it
Right.
could end up all being on you.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, there the to have a bird's eye view like this, to have an insider knowledge, this is just wonderful to have this. It's a little despairing, a little upsetting in a way, but I mean, it's sort of like going in the back of the Mexican food restaurant or the Italian restaurant or whatever and seeing how the sausage is made, or how it's like,
Well,
okay, I don't know if I want to do that.
It's like
Yeah.
being a first-time car buyer with a used car salesman.
Oh, gee. Yeah, right.
You know, you got to be careful.
That's
You
right.
want
I'll go ask my
an
manager.
experienced friend with you.
Yeah, that's true. You got to have an advocate. Well, Linda,
Right.
this has been wonderful, and
Okay, thank you.
I hope you'll come back and tell us which race you're going to be in.
Yeah, we'll see. I've already made
Okay.
the statement. You know, if somebody wants to give me 50,000 right off the day after I file, then I might file.
I know, but we want to do our part in, you know, recognizing all your initiatives and having you talk about them. It's just really important to us to know that people like you are out there. And of course, you helped found, you know, the House of Public Discourse, and we just want to salute you too.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And you come back, okay?
You're inside the all-new House of Public Discourse Radio.com. The house is an area in social media where individuals can come together to discuss societal issues, and from that discussion influence political action. Welcome to the house,
Where our house is your house.